Welcome to Inside the Outcomes, a rehabilitation research podcast from the Center for Rehabilitation Outcomes Research at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. Today, my guest is Dr. Monica Perez, the scientific chair of the Harris Family Foundation Arms and Hands Lab at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab and an internationally recognized researcher in spinal cord injury. Some of Dr. Perez's research focuses on the use of neurostimulation together with physical therapy to provide lasting functional improvements in people with spinal cord injury. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Perez.
Thanks, Sharon. It's wonderful to be able to share our experience with you.
Tell us what happens to someone when they sustain a spinal cord injury. What happens to the nerves and what are some of the problems that arise from that?
Yes, the outcome from a spinal cord injury really depends on the level of the injury and the severity of the injury. For example, a spinal cord injury can be affecting the cervical spinal cord. And depending on the severity of the injury, you can have more or less voluntary deficits in functions of your arms and also functions of your legs. So if you have a thoracic injury, depending on the level of the thoracic injury, also the deficit, maybe your upper limb function will be not affected by the injury, but the lower limb muscles and your trunk control will be much more affected. So there are two factors that are very important for spinal cord injury for the outcome is the level of the injury and the severity of the injury. So basically what we try to do is to understand the connections that are still available after the injury in humans in the subacute phase, soon after the injury, or more in the chronic phase after spinal cord injury.
So can you talk a little bit about your neurostimulation research and how it's changed over time and kind of bring us up to speed?
Yeah, so this is a protocol that we used for the first time in humans with spinal cord injury in 2012 when we were at the University of Pittsburgh. So it started as a proof of principle. We tried to aim to get to the spinal cord by stimulating descending motor axons non-invasively and also stimulating motor neurons non-invasively at the level of the peripheral nerve. So when we time action potentials properly, we can actually potentiate activation of spinal cord excitability. And we make those estimations based on electrophysiology. So we published a series of proof of principle studies where we demonstrate the mechanism of this plasticity and that it was possible to elicit in upper limb muscles, in lower limb muscles. And then we moved to randomized placebo-controlled clinical trials. At the moment, we have published 2 placebo-controlled clinical trials in humans with chronic, incomplete, but severe spinal cord injury, where we use the neurostimulation. It depends on the protocol. We have used it for 30 minutes or for almost an hour. And then that is followed up by exercise rehabilitation, conventional physical therapy. We have published the effect of 10 sessions, 20 sessions, 40 sessions. And we have shown that the dose of the stimulation in terms of the number of sessions is quite important for the functional outcomes. So we have been spending several years in optimizing this neurostimulation protocol.
Can you talk a little bit more about the neurostimulation itself? What is it? What is the purpose of it? What is going on is there a kind of a gap in the nerve that you're trying to overcome or?
Yes. So after spinal cord injury, most spinal cord injuries in humans are anatomically incomplete. So we have residual axons that make synaptic connections with spinal motor neurons directly or indirectly. And we aim with this protocol to strengthen that connection. We aim to strengthen synaptic activity. And we have a little bit of evidence based on electrophysiological outcomes that we can do this non-invasively in humans. So we think that those connections in many patients are there, but they are weak. So with our neurostimulation, we target those synaptic connections in the spinal cord and try to make it stronger for functional restoration.
And with your protocol, the neurostimulation is delivered through like a patch applied to the skin. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we select very specific places. So we are going to peripheral nerves. We stimulate a peripheral nerve on the surface of the skin. We don't go to the muscle directly, we go to a nerve, and with that, we try to activate more effectively motor axons or motor neurons. And we also go to descending motor axons from the primary motor cortex on the surface or electrically with currents that pass through the spine and get to descending motor axons.
So as patients are undergoing the neurostimulation, it goes on for different lengths of time. You've published on different time periods. What is the purpose of doing it over and over again? Are the nerves the connections are being strengthened more as more neurostimulation is applied?
Yeah, so when we conducted the proof of principle studies, we demonstrated that if we use this neurostimulation for 20, 30 minutes or 40 minutes, actually that increases excitability in the spinal cord, in that synaptic connection. And that is very important because this is when patients complete the exercise rehabilitation. So we stimulate for a period of time that causes an after effect in the spinal cord. And we use that after effect to facilitate the effect of physical therapy. So we hopefully can have a synergistic effect and a stronger effect of physical therapy compared to when we do the same exercise, but without the preceding neurostimulation.
What are some of the outcomes you've seen with this technique?
Yes, so our primary outcome measurement, we have functional measurements. For example, the 10-meter walk test. There is a new publication that we just submitted very, very recently, where we combine this neurostimulation protocol also with the medication to try to even further accelerate recovery. So our outcome measurements have been focusing locomotor output, including the 10-meter walk test, the 6-minute walk test, also grasping behaviors. So we use the grasp or the ability to complete precise actions with your fingers. And we also use a lot of electrophysiology to understand if the excitability of descending motor pathways change before and after the protocol.
Have you had patients who've participated in your studies who essentially couldn't really take a step after participating, can actually take steps?
Yes. So if you go to, especially the last publication, it was published in Annals of Neurology at the end of last year. 3 of the participants that were enrolled in that trial were not able to initiate a single step before the stimulation. And think about, these are people with chronic injuries. Okay, they have had extensive rehabilitation before. So if we do the comparison before and after the protocol, they were able to move the legs with body weight support or with a walker, but without the need of a physical therapy. So that was remarkable. If you think about non-invasive stimulation that is very targeted and targeted multiple muscles simultaneously, could actually result in this strong functional restoration. We still have a long way to go. We still are working on making these protocols stronger, more powerful, to accelerate recovery. But that is really remarkable that with 40 sessions, actually, you can move your leg without the need of an assistant from 1 or 2 therapies in many cases.
I know that some of your results have shown with the neurostimulation combined with physical therapy that improvement in motor function, grasping or walking or moving the legs last quite a while. Going forward, do you see that the protocol might be used on an ongoing basis to maintain improvements? Like, where would it fit into a patient's ongoing therapy?
Yeah, so our view is that there at some point there could be some centers of excellence where patients will go to receive these very specialized protocols. In our experience, patients come back to Shirley Ryan every 6 months or 8 months for another dose of the stimulation. We call it a booster. So they can maintain the gains, but there is still a need to come once a year for for the stimulation protocol. So the vision is that at some point we will create centers of excellence throughout the country where patients will be able to go and receive this type of therapy and then go home and stay there for a little bit of time, or even have a device that patients can take to their houses or their homes and deliver the stimulation guided by the Center of Excellence, but deliver that treatment at home.
Your research has shown that some of it lasts a few months.
So the effects are between 6-9 months and even a year at times. So they last. It's not happening in every subject, but we have a good group of individuals that have prolonged functional restoration. And we're trying to understand if these are more structural changes. Do they continue more permanently, but the system seems to be needing exercise or some kind of input in order for these changes to become more permanent.
With the Centers of Excellence, it sounds like you come in for like a tune-up.
Yes, I think, we refer to a booster. We took that terminology from the COVID time. And I think it is really a booster. We are happy that people feels a difference and they want to come back for more. But our goal, of course, is that they don't have to come back anymore. But we're not there yet. But the fact that they feel and they recover some function and they're asking to come back for more neurostimulation for us means it's quite an achievement, because as you know, we don't have an FDA approved therapy for spinal cord injury right now. So we are all looking for approaches that can have benefits that last for a longer period of time for our patients.
So what are some next steps in your research? What are you looking at next?
So we continue to work in protocol optimization. I think we're focusing on using pharmacological agents at the moment that have a synergistic effect with our protocol. One of those agents is foraminopyridine, and this is a potassium blocker that works in conduction, transmission of axons, and also in strengthening synaptic connections. So because our protocol is aiming to enhance synaptic strength, we have a little bit of evidence that they could have a synergistic effect. So the idea is, if you think about, to try to have our protocol have been effective in improving to some extent functional restoration in individuals who have some connections and some voluntary control. And the next step is to go to individuals who have much more severe injuries also and have an impact at that level. So we are combining therapies. In spinal cord injury, we have good evidence, but combinatorial approaches that target different aspects of the pathophysiology of spinal cord injury are likely to be the more beneficial for humans or for humans with spinal cord injury. So this is what we're doing. We're combining medications with the neurostimulation and with exercise. And I think it's important to think about that these improvements in performance are quite similar to what has been observed previously with invasive approaches. So it's remarkable. I want to emphasize the need of non-invasive approaches and the need to optimize these approaches to further understand the results mechanistically and how to make this protocol stronger for functional restoration. So you might not need to go to an invasive approach. Another possibility is to combine these approaches with cell therapies, with new scaffolds or proteins that are working on regeneration. So we have ideas on how to combine the neurostimulation protocol that we have with those approaches to continue to further rehabilitation and actually have a synergistic effect between therapies. It's important to not combine therapies for the idea of conducting combinatorial approaches, but I think if you have a strong mechanistic approach and a strong hypothesis of why these therapies can help each other, And that's the key. That's very critical for making this protocol stronger and faster and resulting in better functional restoration for our patients.
So it sounds like there's still a long road ahead of different therapies to investigate that might work well with your existing protocol.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the neurostimulation is non-invasive. So with your protocol, the neurostimulation is delivered just through the skin as opposed to having to go inside and stimulate muscles or nerves directly. That's right.
Yes, yes, this is non-invasive, and I think is what makes these therapies more attractive also. But and at the same time, through optimization, we have been able to get to similar levels of functional restoration as you can get with more invasive approaches. So I think our next goal is to go to people with much more severe injuries, individuals with AIS A or B, that means motor complete. Many of them have some residual connections, but no voluntary movement at all. Move these therapies to subacute, the patients sooner, very soon after the injury, to understand if we can have an impact in those patients. So there's a lot to do. The results look very promising, but we still continue to work to have these therapies available to the majority of people and then to make it faster and stronger. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Learn about the trials and learn about how you can participate. I think for researchers, it's quite important. We need your cooperation and we need your input also and your participation in these trials. So hopefully we can help each other. We can help to develop better treatments and we can help you if there is any effect in functional restoration.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perez. This is very, very exciting research. It seems like it's just going to get better and better, and we're really looking forward to talking about your results on a future episode.
Thanks, Sharon. It was wonderful. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity and for to everyone to can listen to the podcast and just be in touch.
If you're interested in learning more about Dr. Perez's research or joining her clinical trial or another clinical trial at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, you can go to the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab homepage at sralab.org. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll come to a section called Clinical Trials, and that's where you can register for a clinical trial at the hospital. This has been Inside the Outcomes, a rehabilitation research podcast. This podcast is funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. This is your host, Sharon Parmet, signing off.